I'm quite similar to a lot of people in that I'm not really a fan of terrorism. I know, controversial opinion and all that, but I just don't like it when people are blown to bits for someone else's ideology. If you're into it, go ahead. Strap a bomb onto your chest and go out into the middle of a field or something. But taking other people with you is what's widely considered as a dick move. But of course, we can't talk about terrorism without having a Z-list celebrity put in their 2 cents, because they know more than we do, don't they? And what's the point of being in the public eye if you're not going to tell people how to think? I present to you Josie Long, who once had a bit part in a shit series called Skins, and more recently had her scenes deleted from a film called Black Mountain Poets. So she obviously knows her stuff.
Nobody's talking about essentially the radicalization of young white men.
If by that you mean the enforced acceptance of a dogmatic religion that calls for the death of anyone who doesn't follow it, yeah, I totally agree with you. We need to address that.
I'm far more frightened of the far right than I am of Islamic terrorism.
Really? Let's see the latest act of far-right terror in the news. Some dude wanted to assassinate the French president. He got stopped though, so it's all good. Now let's take a look at the latest Islamic terror attack. 30 people killed in suicide bombing. You see, Josie Long, there is a whole Wikipedia page that lists Islamic attacks, but only one article on far-right attacks. So I'd say either your liberalism has severely clouded your judgment, or you're a fucking moron.
Because the far right is far more mainstream. The far right is the Sun fucking newspaper and the consequences of that. The far right is Katie Hopkins, up until very recently, having a mainstream show that everyone could listen to the whole time.
Oh, so you want to remove the platform for anyone you don't agree with? Very fucking liberal of you. Look, the Sun newspaper's trash. Everyone knows that, but they do have a girl with her tits out on page 3, so, you know, peaks and troughs. And Katie Hopkins made a career from being outspoken. If anything, I'm a little jealous of her. But it's not like no one was thinking any of these things until Katie Hopkins said it. She had a massive audience because a lot of people have had enough of being dictated to by washed-up comedians in empty theatres, Josie.
The far right is Nigel Faraj putting these posters up that are actually using the same imagery that Hitler's propaganda used.
Ah yes, this is an argument called reductio ad Hitlerum, or more commonly, playing the Nazi card. If Hitler did it, it's bad. So Hitler was a vegetarian, which means anyone who is also a vegetarian is a Nazi. And anyway, those are different images. If it matters so much to you, why not have a go at those Middle Eastern immigrants for looking like Jews? And where's the cow? Nah, it's people walking in a curve. Hitler!
Everyone's like, the thing is, if you ignore Katie Hopkins, she'll go away. If you ignore the Sun, it will go away. I ignore them, they've not gone away, they've got worse.
Perhaps because no one gives a fuck what you think, Josie.
If you have somebody on their Twitter calling for a final solution, it's incitement to violence, it's not acceptable, and it's not a joke.
Yeah, Hitler ruined a lot of things for modern use, didn't he? Final solution now means genocide, goose-stepping is now the Nazi walk, and no one can wear that moustache. Ruined! Oh, and like half of Europe, he did a right number on that too.
If you let Katie Hopkins get away with it, if you let Nigel fucking Farage get away with it, if you let these people get away with spewing their bile, what they do is they make other people's lives harder, and you're complicit in it.
So what do you want? Oh, 5-0. So what do you want to do? Censor them? Not very liberal. Lock them up? Totally plausible in the UK, seeing as what's going on with Count Dankula and that guy from Sussex, but still not very liberal.
When I first heard about the Finsbury Park mosque attack, I was really angry and upset. I think it's the very worst of humanity to attack people who are trying to worship people who've done nothing to anyone being harmed for the sake of hatred.
Yeah, we should be harming each other through love instead. Josie loves a bit of domestic abuse. Keep your violence in the home. Don't let it spread to the streets.
When Jo Cox, the MP, was murdered, she was murdered by somebody who, as they committed that crime, shouted Britain first, Britain first.
Yes, this was during the EU referendum kerfuffle, and I'm not condoning the murder, far from it. The guy was a fucking deluded monster. Just the same as anyone who yells out Allahu Akbar before murdering a bunch of kids at a pop concert. But we're not mentioning that, are we? We're talking about evil white people. They're the real problem.
Then when he's at his trial, he shouts death to traitors, freedom for Britain. This is all around Brexit. This is all around the rhetoric that Nigel Farage whips up.
So Nigel Farage is to blame for some wanker murdering an MP. Fair enough. Fuck individual responsibility. And I know you're not going to link that murder in June 2016 to an article published in, as we can see, November 2015. You wouldn't be that desperate, would you, Josie.
You've got the Sun that lies and creates a false front page headline saying that 20% of Muslims have sympathy for jihadis, which wasn't true at all. They had to publish an apology, which they published like that big. Oh, thanks, that helps, right?
Yeah, as you can see by the apology, the stats actually totaled 19% and not 20%, which would simplify to 1 in 5. So yeah, fake news. Never mind how fucking shocking those stats are. No, you question the maths.
People reacting to this event where somebody has fucking murdered people, and then Tommy Robinson being like, well, what goes around comes around. They have the fucking gall to pretend they have some kind of moral high ground when there's a terrorist attack.
Do you really want to bring up moral high ground when you're preaching this retarded bollocks, Josie? Do you really want to tug at that thread?
When they show up like vultures, straight away Tommy Robinson running to Westminster so he can shout his fucking mouth off.
As opposed to waiting for a white person to retaliate and then making a video on that, condemning the actions of the reporters and MPs who you don't agree with. Have a little think about that, Josie, and tell me, if these people are so bad, how are you any better?
When something like this happens, then you find out what their real agenda is, because their real agenda is just perpetuating violence.
I'd say sticking your fingers in your ears and going la 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 whenever there's an Islamic attack is kind of perpetuating that violence too. You got Jihadi John with a knife at your throat saying, I'm going to kill you, infidel, and you respond with, that's your religion, and I respect that. People are allowed to be angry when innocent people die, Josie, and at least some people have the stones to speak up about what the real problem is instead of changing their Facebook profile picture for a couple of days.
And there's a double standard when it comes to how the media treats people. It's almost been as if people are trying to shame the victims of this crime.
Almost. So they're not then, is what you're saying. It's just a connection you made in your silly little brain. Need I remind you what happens when you speak out against Islam, Josie? Tommy Robinson, that guy you love, got arrested for making a video on a Muslim rape gang. This is the world you're creating.
You know, they're saying, oh, well, this mosque was associated with Abu Hamza, even though there are two mosques next to each other, and Abu Hamza was associated with the other mosque, not this mosque.
Abu Hamza, the hook-handed hate preacher. I'm glad you brought him up. Now, that guy generated some proper hate speech, like serious shit. Not posting his opinion on Facebook, but genuine jihadi bleed the enemies of Allah shit, and has since been convicted of kidnapping and attempting to set up a jihad training camp in Oregon. That man is fucking evil, but let's concentrate on white people, eh?
Not to mention the fact that that was 14, 15 years ago. There's an entirely new administration at the mosque. It's disgusting, it's completely unacceptable, and it's not shown the other way around. A white person commits a crime like this, they're a troubled loner, and there's an effort to understand them with sympathy and to talk about them in terms of mental health.
Probably because we can interrogate them due to them not blowing themselves and other people into a million pieces, Josie. We can find out the guy's mental state, and because he isn't Muslim, we know it wasn't down to Islamic extremism, which is so often the case in these fucked up times. And anyone who follows the Quran to the letter does have mental health issues. We don't need to look into that one.
Now, that's not me saying that that isn't a good idea. Whenever anyone commits a crime, we've got to try and be as humane as possible in response to it. It's just ironic that they demonise the people at this mosque.
Well, if you consider the title of your video, Josie, Are White People Doing Enough to Stop White Terrorism? The same logic would dictate that the Muslim community aren't doing enough to stop Islamic terrorism. And this is an actual community, mind, who can say something if they see something. And as we've seen from the stats, 19% would sympathise with a jihadist. But what do you get? Say no to Islamophobia. I can't say no to that. Islamophobia is real because Islam is fucking killing us. And that's a well-placed fear, so by definition, not a phobia.
And what happened was this man screamed that he wanted to kill all of them, committed acts of violence, horrific fucking acts of violence to people. And what the Imam managed to do was keep people calm, restrain him, make sure that no harm came to that person.
Citizen's arrest. Nice. Look, I'm not saying the guy's actions were acceptable. They were not. All life is precious. Except flies. They can go fuck. But how about you apply some of that liberalism to him, yeah? What caused him to take such actions? Of course he wasn't justified no matter what the case. But if there's a chance of an underlying cause that is pushing people to commit these acts, shouldn't that be addressed? Shit, this is turning into a serious video. Boobies.
It's better than violence. It's giving humanity to people even when they're offering you nothing back. That level of compassion and humanity in an instance like that is kind of amazing.
And I'm sure you'd see white people doing that to an Islamic extremist if they didn't kill themselves in such an act of cowardice. You aren't going to convince me Islam is peaceful, Josie. You have one example, I have a Wikipedia page.
All of this is all about othering people. It's about taking people's humanity away from them. It's about pretending that you can't empathise with people when in actual fact those people are exactly like you.
Except for the 52% who say homosexuality should be illegal in the UK, the 23% who support the introduction of Sharia law in the UK, and the 21% who would not condemn people who partook in the stoning of adulterers. Oh shit, maybe it is a religion of peace.
You can definitely link these things to wider problems. One of those things is probably down to the fact that male violence is a problem in our society.
Oh my fucking hell. So this is all about the white males, is it? Not the passage in the Quran that states when you meet the unbelievers, smite their necks, not sure what they have against my neck, or the passage, kill them where you find them and drive them out from where they drove you out. Persecution is worse than slaughter. No, it's the white males who are the problem, not a book that calls for death to unbelievers and is somehow considered holy.
Men are put under immense pressure. Men are alienated. It's very difficult to live up to certain ideals of what it means to be a man in this society because they're bullshit.
Okay, in which case I give you, men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has made one superior to the other and because they spend to support them from their means. Now, by your own logic, that makes Islam bullshit too, Josie. See, if you let a libtard talk, they'll debunk themselves.
Me talking about the far right and then me saying things like toxic masculinity, I mean, I'm just begging for people to abuse me online here.
Oh, yay! That's me!
But it's about vulnerable people being targeted by extremists and exploited and made to do terrible things because they've got no one they feel they belong to.
Are you referring to white people or Islam now? I think I've over-applied your logic and now I don't know which one you're talking about.
And the problem with the sort of ideology that someone like Thomas Mayer or this man who's committed this crime at the mosque, the problem with those is they're not true about what people are.
I'm not so sure about that one, Josie. The way things are going, the terror attacks, the cause of Islamophobia, the rolling over every time a bunch of us are killed, I think we can expect a lot more retaliations in the future. It's not right, but I think many people are going to start taking the law into their own hands because the law seems to be more interested in protecting the perpetrators than the victims.
I think human nature is complicated, life is complicated, but I think deep down, people want to love each other and look after each other, if that doesn't sound too hippie. And so these people can't succeed in the long term and we have to not allow them to.
If they can't succeed in the long term, why not just leave them to it? It's fucking typical liberal tactics to blame the side who's being attacked, isn't it? You've got a list going back to the 1970s detailing each Islamic attack, but one dickhead drives a truck of peace through a group of Muslims and all of a sudden we're the bad guys. Ignore the rest. Ignore the death toll Islam is currently clocking up. No, we need to change. It's attitudes like this that have allowed this whole thing to get so fucking out of hand. The people that strap on these limited edition ISIS vests, they don't care how accepting you are. They don't give a shit if you welcome immigrants into your country. They only care that you're not Muslim. And Islam means convert or die. Thanks for watching, guys. Sorry this turned out to be a serious one. I guess I'm just sick of this turn a blind eye culture that is literally killing us. Please consider becoming a patron so I can really stick it to Allah by eating a bunch of bacon. The link is in the description, and remember, come to my restaurant that sells nothing. I named it Ramadan.